This is Judge Joe Brown, and you're watching We All Be News TV, the
News Free Dixie.
News Free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes,
how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. It's good to hear your voice. This is Ron Hurd. I was the guy that spoke to you yesterday about Jimmy Lunsford.
Oh yeah, how you doing, Ron?
I'm good. I was just seeing would be a good time to stop by to talk to you.
Well, I got a sound check, and I gotta deal with that,
Yes, sir.
What you could do is you could ask me some questions over the phone now, and maybe I could, give you some answers.
All right, hold on. Yes, sir. Let me set up my record. I want to ask you some questions. You are truly a jazz great, but also you are alum of Manassas High School, where Jimmy Lunsford started his music education program. I just want to ask you about Jimmy Lunsford, what your thoughts about him.
Well, I didn't know much about him, to tell you the truth. And then I started listening to some of his music on Music Choice. It's a station on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some real trivia information about him. They said that he used to steal the members of Fletcher Henderson's band. He said he would get musicians from Fletcher Henderson's band. He would steal them,
Mm-hmm.
And then also they said he was a pilot too. He said he had his own airplane. Did you know that?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I didn't know. And then, I know he went to Fisk. He graduated from Fisk. And he also graduated from New York, a school in New York. Music, he had numerous degrees. He had a couple of degrees. And the thing that was really impressive with me is he played good saxophone, man.
Mm.
I didn't know he played saxophone like that. He played damn good saxophone. I think he was an alto player.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was quite a character. And they say he was very frugal or cheap. They say he's very cheap. He wouldn't even pay nobody. But that was a lot of band leaders during that time, They didn't want to pay nobody, And today that phenomenon still occurs, guys not paying the members. I always try to pay guys as much as I could, I never really wanted to slight them, and I wouldn't get them. It's like the guys that work for me today. If it's a gig that doesn't pay enough money, I don't hire them,
Mm-hmm.
And numerous times I don't take the gig, But that was one of his things, I didn't know that much about him because he taught school at Manassas, man, long before I was even there,
Yes, sir.
This goes back to the 30s. That's when he was there.
Yeah.
But my friend Jamil Nasser, the bass player from Memphis, he would tell me things about him because he was like a historian. He would gather up information about all the people from Memphis, dating way back when. He knew everybody. But he would make a point of doing that. But as far as Lunsford, I didn't know that much about him, man, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I know.
Except what I heard on some of his records. Apparently he was a good arranger, composer, and a good saxophone player. He was an excellent musician, Jimmy Lunsford. Plus, I'm sure he was a good teacher, teaching at Manassas.
Yes, sir. And I would also like to add, too, you played for Miles Davis, of course, back in the 60s, part of his famous groups back in that day. And Miles also talked about Manassas High School, his autobiography about you and Harold Mayburn and so many other guys coming out that high school. And what I also noticed in Miles' autobiography is that when he was growing up in East St. Louis, he used to listen to Jimmy Lunsford on the radio, a broadcaster from the Cotton Club. So I don't know if he knew the connection between Jimmy Lunsford and Manassas High School and you guys.
I guess he did. Well, if he knew about Jimmy Lunsford, he had to know because They always talked about Jimmy Lunsford being the teacher at Manassas High School back when, you know. Of course, this is the '30s, man. This wasn't even in the '40s. Apparently, it was like around in circa 35, 30 something. Now I was just born in '35.
Yes, sir. Well, he
So,
left in 1930. He left in 1930.
well, there it is. See, I wasn't even born then.
Yes, sir.
That's why I didn't really know about him. But I did hear people talk about Jimmy Lunsford, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea, you know, who or what he was or his musicianship until I started hearing some of the old records. And then through that, I got to know him, and I said, "Well, damn, this guy was great." And then, of course, with all the stories, you know, the trivia stories about, you know, how he would steal members of
Fletcher Henderson.
Fletcher Henderson's band. Yeah, Fletcher
What?
Henderson was quite a band leader too. You know, he was a band leader. He was great. But I didn't know, I didn't know anything about these people. I used to hear about them though.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, as I said, when I began to listen to Music Choice on TV, I began to hear some of that stuff, you know, and I was impressed.
Mm.
Pretty good for that era too, you know. Those
Yes,
guys,
sir.
they were writing really good stuff for that time period, you know. Because guys used to tell me, they said, man, Fletcher Henderson used to write this, and he was doing this way back when. And then I hear some of his stuff. It was very highly syncopated. You know, his
Mm-hmm.
stuff was really, but probably difficult to play too, from what I could hear. It wasn't easy to play, but you know, guys back in those days, man, they had great musicianship. Those guys could read real good. You know, they could read music real good and play pretty good too. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
had good technique and all of that stuff. So
Wow.
I marveled at those guys coming up in that era, you know, but I didn't know about them. But to tell you the truth, because I wasn't even born then.
Yes, sir.
But through history and historical information, you know, you get to know what they were and who they were. But that's what the liner note of the people that talked about these people. They talked about Jimmy Lunsford flying his own plane. And I used to work for a guy that had his own plane too. Guy named Bill Davis, Wild Bill Davis. Good
What he
organ
does?
player. He was a great organ player.
Okay.
Yeah, that arrangement of April in Paris. That was his arrangement that he did for Count Basie. That one more once thing. That apparently he arranged that for Count. You know.
Mm.
So with the guys, I'm always interested in the people from yesteryear, but I didn't know much about them because I wasn't around during that time. But some of the older musicians would tell you about them, and I did come in contact with a few guys, that from that period. There was a guy
Mm-hmm.
named Julian Dash, and I think he played. Well, I knew he played tenor saxophone because I met him, and he had one of those famous solos on that tune, "Tipping In." You remember that?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Tipping in, did yeah, do. And Julian Dash, he was a saxophone player that took the bridge, the solo on the bridge on that.
Mm.
I don't know who the alto player was who was playing lead on it because it was a lead thing on alto, but Julian was playing the bridge on
Wow.
tenor. He was improvising. He played the solo. He was
Mm.
a great musician too, and a nice guy too. I met some nice guys, elderly guys, and they kind of embraced me. They could see, I had some semblance of talent, so they would always encourage me. And some of my best friends, involved in music and saxophones and trumpets or music in general, were guys from that era, like Eddie Lockjaw Davis.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
He was one of my favorites, man. Eddie Lockjaw, and on occasion I would run into Coleman Hawkins. On
Oh,
his
wow.
latter years, I began to know him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somewhat, not really personally, but you know. And of course, his Body and Soul was a classic.
Yes, sir.
But Lunsford, man, Lunsford was something else, man. He was good. He was definitely good. And I didn't realize his expertise in arranging and all of that stuff and composing and stuff. But I found that out later too. That all of these fine qualities of music and jazz coming up in that era, he was real good with that. All of that stuff.
Wow.
And they're always very, happy to hear about things about guys coming up because I admire people from that era. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all of the guys who came up from in that time, I didn't know them. I don't even think I ever met Johnny Hodges. Maybe once, maybe I saw him, but a lot of times guys like him and and a couple other guys during that time. Sweets I knew. He was like a good friend of mine. Sweets Edison.
Oh yeah, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I
Wow.
knew him. But and also I didn't know Roy Eldridge, but I heard some fascinating stories about him.
Wow. What about,
Yeah.
but Gerald Wilson? You ever meet Gerald Wilson? By any chance?
Gerald, one time when he came in to catch Horace Silver,
Mm.
Horace had a band at the Blue Note in New York, and I came out that particular night to catch Horace's band, and Gerald Wilson was in the audience.
Mm.
That's the only time, and I never did get a chance to really get up close to him and have a conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in town during that time, and I knew about him. I knew he was great.
Mm-hmm.
And also the alto player, I'm trying to think of his name, that was from Memphis during that time. I ran into him in Paris.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of what his name was.
It was
But he was a great,
it was
he
he
was a
Buster
great
Bailey?
alto player.
Not Buster
Uh-huh.
Bailey. Not Buster Bailey. The Reed man. Not
No, it
Buster.
wasn't Buster. It
Mm.
wasn't Buster. He was a little bit after Buster.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he was great. He was from Memphis. And then he went to California.
Was Sonny Chris? Not Sonny Chris, right?
Sonny Chris. That's what
Okay.
it was.
He went to Booker T. Washington at one point. Was he at Booker T. Washington at one
I
point?
think he was. I
Okay.
think he was. I don't think he was Manassas. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what it was. Sonny Chris. I met him in Paris, and he was very helpful. And because I was over there in '61,
Wow.
and I was playing with Clyde Hampton's Octet over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the band that had two trumpets, two trombones, tenor, and baritone. That was our instrumentation.
Wow.
No piano, bass and drums.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, it was good. I was impressed with that T-shirt, though, man. That was nice. You did a great job on that.
Oh yes, sir. I gotta do one of you. Maybe I could do one of you and send you one.
Oh, that would be great. If you would. Yeah. You can always get all my information from Kelly, Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly has all the information from all the guys from Memphis,
Yes, sir.
But if you got time, I can give you my address right now.
Yes, sir. I'll please give it to me right now.
Okay. It's 63
Mm-hmm.
East 9th Street, apartment 4G as in George,
Mm-hmm.
and the zip is New York, 10003. That's
Okay.
it. My phone number is from the house is 212-473-5423. That's all my information.
Yes,
I
sir.
got the email and all that stuff, but I never do really use that too much.
I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you. I also want to ask you about Mr. Abel. He did send you the plaque I gave you, right? The Jimmy Lunsford plaque from years ago.
Jimmy Lance's what?
I gave you a Jimmy Lunsford award about maybe like several years ago. Mr. Abel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he said he gonna send it to you.
Oh, who? Mike Kelly?
Emerson Abel. Mr.
Oh,
Abel.
Emerson Abel.
Yeah.
It's quite possible that he did because Emerson used to send me a lot of information about various people. You know,
Mhm.
he did. He knew everybody. We miss him too, man. Because every time I would come in, he would be around. You know, and he was somewhat of bitter. You know,
Mhm.
he was disenchanted with the politics of the city. You know, involving black musicians and jazz and all the stuff like that. He used to tell me about that. He had grievances, in other words.
Yes, sir.
But that was Emerson. You know how
Yeah, that's true
Emerson
too.
was.
What do you think about his musicianship, like his sound and stuff, Mr. Abel?
Well, I didn't get a chance to catch too much. I know he was a good arranger,
Mhm.
but Floyd told me that he was really a great artist with a pencil or a
Yeah.
brush. And some of the things he used to send me in the mail, man, were really artistic and well done. And I mean, but Floyd said he could really draw and paint and do things like that. He was an artist in that sense.
Mhm.
But he said his musicianship, I know he used to arrange music, he could write and do that, but Floyd said his forte was really uh, uh, drawing and stuff like that. He's just like what you're doing, with Ali and things like that. Said Emerson was great with that. Emerson could draw a portrait of somebody,
Mhm.
exact,
I seen some of his work. It is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is, man. I mean, Emerson was something else. I really miss him too, Ron, because every time I'd come, but he would call me on numerous occasions and give me the inside dope of all the stuff that was happening in Memphis.
Mhm.
And sadly, some of it was not good. He would tell me about this and that and what certain the Caucasian element and what they were doing in the
Right.
city, and and it was not pleasant. And he was disenchanted with a lot of stuff that went on down here. But he was great though, man. Emerson, I always loved Emerson, man. Emerson was very helpful too. Whatever you really needed to know or needed to do, he would let you know.
Yes, sir.
He was good.
Well, I want to ask you too, but you got a great sound. I really enjoyed your sound last night. Were you mostly self-taught on the saxophone?
Definitely, yeah, completely. Actually, but
Wow.
I see the thing with me is I always tell people, though, just like when John Bass was asking me, he gave me an interview. I told him, from the time when I started, when I picked up a saxophone up until I really joined the big boys, like when 50, see, I started playing music probably in 52 when I just got out of high school. And I
Mhm.
went downtown, Beale Street, and started hanging out at the hotel. And I lived at the hotel, Mitchell's Hotel.
Mhm.
And I used to see a lot of guys coming through from out of town, because they would come to the hotel. That was the place. All the guys would come to the hotel because they knew that that's where the musicians in Memphis were playing.
Mhm.
And I told him, I said, well, look, from the time that I started playing after high school, picked up an alto saxophone, me and my brother bought the saxophone, and I would practice it along with him until 50, well, 50, in 53 or 54, I had arranged some music for Ray Charles when he came through.
Wow.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I had been playing music for about 2 years. But I wrote out about four horn arrangement on some of his stuff. I transcribed it from the record. So I
Wow.
was doing transcription and stuff like that, very early. And by the time 1955 rolled around, I was with BB. Now that's 3 years after I first picked up a horn.
Wow. What gave you the
I was with
confidence, man?
BB, and I was writing stuff for BB, and we had a nice band, we had a jazz band, man. BB had the jazz band. People don't know that. jazz. We would play 2 or 3 jazz tunes before BB would come on, and
Wow.
then he would have a couple of male and female vocalists in the band. You probably don't remember their names, but one of the girls was Benita Cole. I think she was from New Orleans.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we had a guy named Harold Connors that was a male singer, you know. And we had those two. They would sing a couple of tunes before he would come on. We'd play a couple of tunes from the band, jazz tunes.
Mhm.
And then they would bring BB, and then we'd bring BB on. But see, people be saying, "Oh, where's BB?" You know,
Mhm.
hey, we want BB. You know, they didn't really want to hear, nothing but BB. They were BB people.
Uh-huh.
So that's what used to go down there, and that was 1955. Then after 1955, I came to Chicago, spent a couple of years there, and that's when Max Roach came through in 1957.
Mhm.
And then he sent for me in 1958, and I joined this band, and I started making records with him. 1958, and then after that, it was Miles Davis, as one of the big, one
Mhm.
of the great bands, jazz bands. So in that short enough of time, I went from R&B to jazz. Some of the top, some top names, and of course in '63, shortly after the '58 thing, I was in Miles Davis band. '63 and a little tail end of '64, little portion of '64. So I was never in none of these bands over a year. BB
Wow.
was a year. I spent a year on the road with BB. Me and Floyd.
Mhm.
We went out. We joined the band pretty much around the same time in 1955. I was with him from '55 until the beginning of '56, and then that's when I came back to Memphis. Spent a few months, then went to Chicago, and from Chicago was like the one of '56 to '58. And '58, Max uh, gave me a ticket to come to him to join his band in Pittsburgh, and that's when I started with him. My first gig with Max was in Pittsburgh,
Wow.
along with the great Kenny Dorham, trumpet
Mm.
player. He was in the band during that time. Then after that, Booker came into the band after Kenny Dorham.
Wow.
So, we were two Memphis guys there in one of the great bands, during that era. Because those bands, you had Horace Silver, you had Art Blakey's band, you had Max's band, which I was in, and then you had Miles' band. So those were the four top jazz bands on the scene during that time. Traveling too, these were guys who were traveling. During that time, the guys weren't paying no money. They would
Right. Right.
you couldn't get rich playing with those guys. But we were youngsters, and it was great for us because it enhanced our careers. You know,
Wow.
so it was a great time, man. I feel good about my beginnings, and up until this day. Right now, I've over there always said, well, you don't get your just acclaim. People they don't talk about you. Well, the media's never been kind to me. You know,
Mhm. Right.
but I never worried about that. My fans all over the world, whenever I would go to Europe, they would be there because they knew me from other records, probably not my own, but they knew me from Miles' records. They knew me from Chet Baker's records.
Mm.
And a lot of people thought I played with Chet Baker. I never did play with him,
Wow.
except on the records. I did 5 LPs for him. And we did those LPs with about no more than 3 recording sessions that lasted probably no more than 6 hours each time, because that usually was the amount of time you would take to do a recording session. So I did 3 of those, and of course Chet during that time he was strung out, of course. and his playing was limited to maybe a couple hours, and he would do his thing, and then he would have to get his fix, So
Right.
we would do maybe a few hours, 2 or 3 hours in the studio, and then we would uh, they would cancel it, until the next day or the next few days after that.
Wow.
I remember we did about 3 sessions, and through those 3 sessions came 5 CDs with various titles, like Smoking, Wailing, and all the kind of, But it was quite enlightening to me because I didn't think he could play like that, man. I didn't know he could play like that.
And he was self-taught too, right? Was Chet Baker self-taught?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know about him. I don't really know. He might have been, but I'm not sure. I know he was an excellent musician. He could read, and, because he did some stuff with Mulligan that I'm just beginning to hear. Just him and Mulligan, baritone and trumpet,
Wow.
which is kind of an odd combination. So I thought, but some great things would come from a trumpet and a baritone sax. So.
Wow. Well, who's your favorite trumpet player to play with? Who was your favorite trumpet player to play with?
Well, it's hard for me to really say a favorite. Well, one of my favorites basically was the guy that I started playing with from Memphis, the Booker Little, and
Right.
Edward Lewis Smith, who just recently died. You know that, didn't you?
I didn't know that. Wow.
You didn't know that Edward Lewis had passed away?
No, sir.
But you knew about him, though, right?
Yes, sir. Wow.
Well, he just recently passed away about a month ago, or less. And he was one of my favorites because we grew up together here in Memphis playing together. And, he was wonderful. I enjoyed playing with him. Of course, I enjoyed playing with Lee Morgan, too.
I love Lee Morgan, right. Wow. Man, Lee Morgan is incredible.
He was great, man. Really great. And Kenny Durham also.
Right.
So it was, when you say, what was your favorite? They were all my favorites, man. I couldn't separate them as far as the experience and their talent and how much I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed playing with all of them.
Wow.
Chet, too. But, I never played a gig with Chet. I just did recordings with Chet. But with Kenny Durham and Max's band and Lee Morgan, I was in his band. And did maybe one record, I think. Maybe one or two records with Lee Morgan. And I enjoyed him tremendously. But Booker, Kenny Durham, Lee Morgan, and Booker, I can't say no more. That's the top. Those guys were tops. When you talk about trumpet players.
Wow.
And so all of them I enjoyed playing with, each one of them. And I can't say who was my favorite. They were all my favorites.
I know Booker Little died so young, and he was a brilliant trumpet player.
23 years old, man. And he was like he was phenomenal. When he passed away, he was playing like somebody who had been on the planet for 100 years playing trumpet.
Wow.
He was that great, man. He was really, and everybody respected him. Freddie, Lee, all the guys, when they heard Booker, boy, because he had such a tremendous technique. And then they talk about him today. You talk about Wynton Marsalis. Shit, man. Booker was a jazz player and a technician.
Wow.
And he practiced a lot, too, man. I'd be laying in bed, during some of the time we'd be on the road, and I'd hear him in the room practicing. And I'd be laying up in the bed. I said, shit, I wasn't into practicing as much as he was, but he would be practicing during the day and play about 50 courses during the night with Max.
What did Max think? Max had Clifford Brown before Booker, and he had Kenny. What was he talking about?
Well, that's the classic. That was the classic band, Clifford Brown and Harold Land, and Richie Powell, Bud Powell's brother, who was a great piano player too.
Right.
And George, the bass player, George, what was his name? What's his last name? I can't think of it right off hand. But he was a great bass player. And it was a hell of a band, man. It was a great band. That Clifford Brown band. With a, yeah, yeah. It was quite a band, and they made some great records, as you well know.
Yeah, I was listening to, excellent record.
Daoud and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Oh man, it was great stuff. Parisian Thoroughfare,
yeah.
wonderful stuff,
I was
man.
just listening to Clipper Brown with Strings the other day. I mean, this is timeless.
Oh, that's a classic. That is a classic, Ron. You can't get no better than
No, you
that.
can't. I play trumpet myself, so I'm just very impressed. I'm also impressed with you, what your sound is, because I was hearing some. I talked to Jimmy Heath back in March about Jimmy Longford and with the Queen, and I was listening to Billy. I love Billy Eckstein too, and I was listening to like one of his orchestras from the '40s with Gene
Right.
Ammons. And I heard a little bit of Gene Ammons in your playing too. I heard some Chicago in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know you spent some time in
Gene was
Chicago.
another friend of mine too. I
Oh
like
wow.
Gene. Gene was great, and he was always very complimentary and respectful to me. You know, because he knew I was a youngster coming up, and he would always encourage me. Gene Emmons was great, man. He was a good guy. You know, his problem was, he was in dope,
Right.
as most of those guys coming up during that time. They were all doing something, you know, and some of them were drinking, well, Sonny Stitt, he was doing everything.
Mm.
But when he put that horn in his mouth, boy, Sonny Stitt was, oh man, he was,
Y'all had some
Sonny
great, y'all some great ones, man. Y'all had, man, wow, that's impressive. I'm just so
Well,
impressed with the musicianship.
I had the opportunity to come up with all of those guys. They knew me. I was a youngster, so they didn't really, because Sonny Stitt used to try to throw me. He would try to trick me. He would have me up there, and he would try to pull something on me. He'd throw a tempo or a key or something, but I could deal with it. I was able to deal with it. Till it got to the point where he would tell me, "Well, you sit down. You're gonna sit down." And me and Gene, we got this one. I remember one night I was up there playing, and he was gonna pull something on me. When he found out I could take care of it, he said, "Well, look, me and Gene, we got this one. You sit this one out." Well, Sonny was like that, and any young player that would come up, he would invite him up so he could cut them the ribbons.
Wow.
That was his thing. He loved to do that. He loved to embarrass you. If you couldn't play, or if you couldn't get past his stuff, because he might call a weird key on you. He might call F sharp or E natural or B natural or something on you for one of them standard songs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he would do things like that. He was very, very, very tricky, And if you couldn't play, he'd embarrass you. He would invite you up, say, "Hey, come on up. Yeah, all right, let me hear you." And then he would lay that on you, and then you'd be embarrassed. You'd have to pack your horn up and get off the stand. Because he couldn't play the stuff that he was playing, the tempos and the keys and all of that stuff. But he was noted for that.
Do you think he copied?
He would try to pull that on me and Frank Foster.
Oh,
But he
okay.
couldn't do, with Frank Foster was just as great with anything that he could throw at him. Keys or tempos, anything. Frank Foster would be ready for him.
Wow. So you don't believe that Sonny Stitt was like emulating Bird at all, right? He had his own sound.
Well, the people used to say that, but I always felt that Sonny Stitt really had his own thing. I mean, he played Bird like it to a certain extent, because everybody, all the alto players from that era, the younger guys were playing like Bird, but Sonny Stitt was all, you can identify a person. Just like when some people hear me, they say, "Oh, that's Big G," I know that's George Coleman,
Mm-hmm.
So when you got an identity, because we all have taken things from everybody. Whenever I would listen to everybody, I could always hear something in everybody's playing, and even to this day, I hear some of the young players that I like, and I hear some of the older players that I like. So I would be taking notes from all of them. I could be listening to all of them and admiring all of them. I was never a person that said, "Oh yeah, I'm the king of the hill." kick everybody's ass. I was never into that. Yeah, but that was the concept during that time, you know.
Mhm.
And they call that head cutting. I don't know whether you remember that term.
Yeah, yes, sir.
They
I
got
read
the
about it.
man.
Yeah. Mhm.
He said, "Get a girl. I'm gonna cut your head, man. You come up on the stand, I'll cut your head." So that's where the term axe came from.
Mm.
You know, they said, "Man, you got your axe," which meant you have your instrument. You know,
Right.
and your axe could be anything. Could be piano, you know, whatever. But your axe was your cutting tool, you know. So they used to say, "Yeah, man, you got cut. You got up on the stand and you got cut." You know, that was quite an era, though, Ron. It was great.
Well, man,
Yeah,
oh God, I didn't mean to cut you out, Mr. Coleman.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask you about, because you talk about those guys. They was definitely saxophone giants. But what about people like A.L.L and Ornette Coleman and Eric Dolphy, those guys?
Well,
What's your thoughts on them?
well, you know, some interesting stories about them. You know,
Mhm.
they were always kind to me. You know,
Mhm.
I didn't get a chance to really get involved with them too much, but during that time when Arnett came along,
Mhm.
everybody, and see, this was something that some of the white critics, you know, they came up with this. Oh, this is the new jazz, you know.
Mhm.
And see, people were skating behind that. They didn't have to, these guys didn't have to study. They'd pick up a horn and go out and play all these weird noises and stuff with no technique and no harmonic direction. And they say, "Oh yeah, man, I'm doing my own thing. This is it." See, so Arnett Coleman, he brought that shit into prominence. And I never did. I didn't care for it. You know, Albert Allen, Arnett Coleman, and those guys. I respected them though. And, you know, and they knew me somewhat, and they always
Mhm.
respected me. But
Mhm.
I wasn't into that. And here's a little amusing little anecdote that I'll tell you about. They said
Mhm.
one time when during that time when all the guys like Ray Brown and John Lewis, all the pseudo intellectuals involved in the music, you know, they were saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is the greatest stuff thing that came along. Arnett Coleman, he's the greatest. He's beyond Bird. He's beyond Charlie Parker." So uh, 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 Roy Eldridge looked at us. He said, "Man, that shit." He said, "That shit is stupid." He said, that ain't no music, man." He said, "What are you guys talking about?" And these were some of the big guys, you know. This was
Mhm.
John Lewis, you know, Ray Brown,
Right.
and several others during that time. They said, "Oh, yes, this is the evolution of jazz. You know, this is what jazz is going to be." So Roy just said, "Man, you guys got to be kidding." He said, "Man, that shit ain't nothing but noise." So what he did one day, he said, he went in a studio with this tape recorder,
Mhm.
sat out on the piano, and started just fumbling around, running his hand all over the piano, raking his hand across the piano, making all kind of weird noises. So he took this tape up to these guys, Ray Brown and these guys, and said, "Listen, man, there's a young guy out here that can play piano. Listen to this." So he put the shit on, and the guy he said, oh, he said, "Wow." They said, "Wow, who is that, man? He sounds great." He said, "It's me, you dumb motherfuckers." So, you know, see Roy Eldridge and the guys, you know, they you know, because it was like a lot of fakery getting, you know, by during that time, you know.
Mhm.
And to this day, I always respect Arnett. You know, Arnett was a good guy. You know, the little time that I had, you know, I would run into him. I say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" He would know me, but that was never my cup of tea. The so-called
Mhm.
avant-garde was not my cup of tea, and I never tried to do it. I never wanted to do it. But here's an interesting little item for you,
Mhm.
and a lot of people. Now, I think this might have been in the book too, in Miles's book.
Mhm.
Herbie, Ron, and Tony Williams,
Mm.
they were snubbing me on the bandstand. You know, 'cause a lot of nights Miles is whenever Miles was there, everything was cool. But
Mhm.
see, Miles had health problems. His
Mhm.
hip was killing him. He could, you know, he needed hip replacement,
Right.
and it was and a lot of nights he wouldn't show up. And then he would take a Coke and stuff to try to keep the pain, ease the pain,
Mhm.
So this particular night, we were playing, all of us, the whole court, the whole quintet was on the band. So he played this, he kicked off a fast, it might have been walking, I think. And he kicked it off because they were always snubbing me. They always looking at me, oh, this old fashioned ass mother. He can't, it's,
Mhm.
we're hip. We playing this hip music, because they were trying to embrace the so-called avant-garde during that time. Because
Mhm.
they thought it was a new thing, and it was great stuff for them. They said, "Oh, we're the young breed. We're playing some different stuff from the old-fashioned bebop."
Right.
And I was ridiculed. So this particular night, Miles kicked off this fast walking, and he walked off the stand and went to the bar to have his champagne, which he usually had every night, a bottle of champagne. And so Herbie played his solo after Miles played his. And then after that, I stepped up to the mic and
Mm.
I played. And I said, I'm gonna get these idiots off of me because they don't know. I said, I can do that shit if I want to. So I played some real out stuff. Miles was at the bar. He heard that shit. He rushed back up to the stand and said, "What the f was that?" Because he never heard me play out like that. He
Uh-huh.
never heard me play nothing out.
Mm.
And that began that, and all of them, they looked around at each other and looked at me and said, "Yeah, man, yeah, yeah." you know, because they didn't know I could do that stuff. I
Right.
could, I could play that funny sound and stuff, man. I could do all of that. And the way I did it was I was swung with it because they were playing the same tempos and stuff. So I just played outside harmonically.
Mm.
Just to show them that I could do it, and they all really they found out that I could do that.
Wow.
But after that night run, I didn't
Mm.
do it no more. I went right back to playing my old changes and bebop.
Uh-huh.
Right after that, they didn't get no more of that. I gave them that, but I didn't give them no more. And Miles was amazed with that because he didn't know I could do it either.
Wow. What do you think about Miles Davis playing, his trumpet playing?
Well, he evolved into that sort of thing too. Later in his career, when I was in the band, the latter part, he was playing a lot of chromatics and stuff. But he was a change player.
Mhm.
Which was quite evident in some of his earlier things that he did with Bird. He was
Mhm.
playing good changes. And intricate harmonic stuff like that thing old milestones,
Oh yeah.
Da-da-da-dee-da-da.
Mhm.
That's an intricate harmonic tune.
Mm.
So he was playing. He was playing on that. So he could play changes now. He never was. But then when that time I was with him, he was stepping out. He stepped out some. But when he stepped up to the mic and played Funny Valentine,
Yeah.
he would play Funny Valentine,
Yeah.
or I Thought About You, or all
Mhm.
these ballads. So but he wanted to do that. But see, Miles was kind of lazy. Miles was kind of lazy. So it was a situation one time he was over in Europe. So Dexter came up to him and said, "Man." This is when he went into that wah-wah stuff,
Right.
and the electronics and all of that
Uh-huh.
shit. And Dexter came up to him and said, "Hey man, when are you gonna play some music? What are you doing with what is this stuff that you?" So Miles said, "Man," he said, "when you gonna start playing some music, man, some bebop?"
Uh-huh.
So Miles said, "It's too hard." So he was lazy. He was lazy. He didn't want, he didn't, but he could play. Miles knew changes. He could play changes. Miles could play changes. And then when he went into the Gil Evans stuff,
Oh yeah.
he didn't have to play with one or two notes on that stuff, but he played it well because he had that great sound.
But he wasn't a virtuoso. He wasn't up there with Clifford Brown, those type of guys like
No,
Dizzy.
no, no, not by no means. No, he would no Clifford Brown and Dizzy and people like that. And even some of the other guys. Well, of course Lee and,
Oh yeah.
and Booker and all those people.
Mhm.
But Miles was, Miles was getting over with what he was doing, and I'm not going to say that he couldn't play changes or didn't play jazz. I would, like with Wynton Marcellus, and the stuff that he's doing. Wynton stuff is really, Wynton stuff dates back to Louis Armstrong, to tell you the truth.
Mhm.
And it's been said that he's like a Louis Armstrong with technique, because that's what he sounds like. That corny ass New Orleans shit.
I
Yeah,
like how you
that.
speak. Yeah, I like how you speak about this stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's refreshing, actually. Well,
Oh
actually,
well,
just cause,
yeah.
oh,
Well,
actually,
that's what it is. And to this day, he's been very fortunate to get over. Now
huh,
that's not to say that he can't play the trumpet.
right.
Now he can play the trumpet, no question about that. He's got great technique. And Freddie told me one time. Freddie said, "Man, I'm sitting in this band with him, and he played the fourth trumpet part." He said, "Man, and the fourth trumpet part is hard, man."
Mhm.
For a trumpet part, you'd be way in the low register of the horn, playing like B naturals and low G's and stuff like that,
Uh huh.
almost down to the last note, that F sharp down there.
Right.
And he's that's the fourth trumpet part. So when you play the fourth trumpet, he said, "Man, he got sight read that fourth trumpet part, and boy, he said but Freddie knew. Freddie said, "Man, he's a good trumpet player." He said, "But he couldn't swing. Shit, he can't swing."
Just Freddie Hubbard. Just Freddie Hubbard.
And then Freddie told him. Freddie said, "No, he can't swing. He can't swing." Yeah, because Freddie thought he could outswing all of them, and which he could most of the time. He would, of course, Clifford Brown could swing too, but
Mhm.
Freddie, in his when he came up in his era, Freddie was kicking butt, man. Freddie was
Wow.
something else too.
Mm.
I enjoyed playing with Freddie too. Freddie was a great trumpet player,
Wow.
but man, you have it. The day modern day. There's some few young guys out there that play too. There's a little guy named Jim Rotundi
Mhm.
that I played with, and I've had him in my octet band, and he's
Mhm.
a good player.
Wow.
So, it's a lot of little young guys out there that can play. There's a little guy named Jeremy Pelt that plays good.
Mhm.
And then there's another guy named Ryan Kaiser, little young white guy. Well, they're not young anymore. They up in their 50s and 60s now. But when they
Uh huh.
first came up, they were young then. But, times change, man. Every time I look around, and every time I pick up the paper or the jazz media, and I see that somebody's gone, man.
Right.
They gone. They said, "Oh yeah, he was right." And then you had Blue Mitchell, who was a great trumpet player.
Mhm.
You had uh, uh what was this guy's name? Gordon from Boston. Joe Gordon. Joe Gordon, another
Okay.
great trumpet player. Good. There was a lot of guys coming up during that time, man. A lot of guys coming up, and they all played good. But Kenny Dorn was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He
I
was
mean,
one of
on
my
the radio to
favorites. I
me. I
was in the
mean,
band with
yeah.
him, though.
Wow.
Him and Booker, those were the guys for me. Those were
Mhm.
two guys that I greatly admired and respected, because they both were such phenomenal players, and they had originality in their playing. See, that's the thing.
Mhm.
Just like when I said before, a guy listened to you say, "Hey, oh yeah, that's George Coleman. I can hear it. I can hear it in his sound. I can hear
Right.
it in his approach to harmony and whatnot." So when you can establish uh, 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 yourself as an individual, when you play stuff that people know it's you, you
Mhm.
know, that's when you got a style and a sound. And that's what I like. I like that with guys who play music. Well, you got that Eddie like Joe Davis. Nobody in the world plays like him.
Right. Wow.
He's a one. He's a one of a kind. There was one guy that could mimic him, and I don't know how he could do that either. There was one guy that could mimic Eddie Lockjaw Davis, play all of that stuff that he plays, with the sound, and
Uh huh.
and you know who that was?
Who was that?
Frank Foster.
Mm.
And Frank Foster was a modernist. You know, I mean, he played like Train and everybody. You know,
Mm.
but he could play. He could mimic Eddie Lockjaw Davis, and it was amazing. And there was two people that acknowledged that. There was probably more than two, but one was me, and the other was Jimmy Heath. Jimmy Heath said,
Oh yeah.
"Man,
Oh, Jimmy
Frank
Heath.
Foster sound just like Lockjaw." Well, not just like him, but he could play stuff, man. It would sound really identical, and that was hard to do because that was some complex stuff he was playing. And Griffin used to say, man, he said Lockjaw used to do certain things with his horn that was different, that made his sound. He could do some mechanical stuff,
Mm.
put some kind of pad or felt or rubber band or something, and he said he would get that sound from that.
Wow.
But those guys were doing all kind of different things from that era, man. It was amazing the stuff that those guys coming from that. That's why I always admire and respect them. And some of these young punks out here who think that they know everything.
Right.
Oh, I'm playing the hip stuff. And some of them think that Coltrane is old fashioned.
Really,
If you can
Coltrane?
believe that.
Yeah, I want to get your thought. I was about your thoughts on Coltrane. He did push the envelope towards the end. I just want to get your thoughts about him as a player. What's your think about Coltrane?
Oh well, I liked him because I knew whatever he played was going to be musically correct, even as weird and as far out as it sounded. Sometimes he knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Harmonically, he knew what the deal was. But he was a searcher. You know, Trey was a searcher. He was always trying to find something. And he practiced all the time. He would be up there playing, get off the set, he'd go in the dressing room and get his horn out and be practicing in the dressing room between sets. He would be doing that. He loved his instrument so much that he could do that. And he was the guy that really loved to practice. See, when I was coming up, I did most of my practicing down here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Right. Wow.
At Mitchell's Hotel, where I first started playing.
Wow.
So I would practice during the day. I'd take it out in the morning, put it on the bed, go out and play some touch football. Because I was a kid, you know.
Right.
I'd go across the street to the pool hall on Hernando, right near the corner of Bill. There was a pool room there. And some of the elderly guys would come in there and shoot pool, and I'd be in there watching them. You know, I was never a great pool player, but I would watch them. They'd be playing all bank and all that kind of stuff, man.
Wow.
And 4 and 5 reels in the corner. There was a guy named Sam Waters. He was a trumpet player from that era. Played with A.L.L. Jackson. You don't remember A.L. Jackson, do you?
A.L. Jackson Sr., A.L. Jackson Jr. dead, right?
Well, yeah, A.L. Jackson's the senior.
Okay.
Because he had the band at the Palace, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He had the band, it was at the Palace, not the New Daisy. He was at the Palace. I think it was every Monday night or one of those nights he was there. And I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. But I do know that during that time, man, those are the people that I was listening to and admiring. And Tough Green, too. You remember Tough Green?
I remember reading about him.
You heard about Tough Green.
Yeah,
You're
yes,
too
sir.
young to know these guys, man.
Yeah, I know. I read about
them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were during that time. These guys were, you know, here in Memphis. These were some of the real Memphis musicians. And I worked with. I remember when I first was playing, I was like playing honky tonk. You know, that was Bill Doggett's thing. You remember that, right? That famous honky tonk, the saxophone solo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I learned that solo, boy, and I would come out in the street, and the folks would say, "Oh, there's the honky tonk man," because I was playing it all over the city. Because they had a little tricky turnaround on it, and it required a little bit of technique. It wasn't really extremely difficult, but you had to know how to play it. Mm-hmm. So I'd be playing the honky tonk, you know, with all them growls and things, and everybody would see me and they say, "Oh, there's the honky tonk man."
Oh wow.
I'd be walking down Beale Street, they would point out and say, "Yeah, that's him. Yeah, he played." You know, if you could play honky tonk, you were great.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, I wrote a high school arrangement for Tough Green because he was teaching at a high school.
Mm.
And he said, write out this honky tonk for me, man. So I wrote it out for a whole band, you know. I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't have much to do, but there wasn't that much harmony to it. And so, you know, everybody was doubling, you know. The altos were doubling, the trumpets were doubling, you know, and there very little harmony because there was no harmony to be had except it was a blues. It was a blues, you know.
Wow.
So I wrote out an arrangement for him one time, and he played it for the band. He said, "Oh yeah, that was nice, man." I liked that. I don't even think I ever heard it. I didn't ever hear it. I had written some stuff that I really never heard. I would
Mm.
just give one that was a rock singer, a guy. Well, he wasn't a rock. He was an R&B singer, and he'd get me to write some arrangements, take on the road, because he would go to these places and he'd need a band. So he had his arrangements. He passed them out to these people, you know, because that's what the scene was, you know. The band was there, the house band was there, and you needed to have some arrangements.
Mhm.
You know, if you went there and you were a singer, you needed to have an arrangement.
So
So I
this wasn't
did a
Johnny Ace,
couple of
right?
them.
It wasn't Johnny Ace by any chance, was it?
Uh,
Was it Johnny Ace you was writing arrangements for?
no, Johnny, I never wrote any arrangements for Johnny Ace.
Okay.
But it was a guy named Billy the Kid Emerson in
Mm.
Chicago. He was a Chicagoan. And I wrote some stuff for him. And as I told you, I arranged Ray Charles.
Mhm.
I got a woman and a Lonely
Wow.
Avenue and all of that stuff. I arranged that for him, and he was impressed to the extent that when the next time he came to the city, the guy that had me one of my violin teachers from Manassas, he commissioned me to write those arrangements.
Wow.
It was for organization during that time for people, underprivileged people during the Christmas holidays. And this show was called the Goodwill Review. It was here
Mhm.
in Memphis during
Mhm.
the 40s and the 50s. So I arranged Ray Charles' music because he was a star. And when he came through, he played this, you know, this was a benefit. And he came through and he needed arrangements for his stuff. He didn't have a band, so the local guys here in the city put some arrangements. I was very proud of that too because that was one of my first projects of writing, arranging, you know.
Wow.
So, but I was doing that, man, when I could hardly, you know, I just started playing. I could do that.
I mean,
And so
that's
they talk
crazy.
about, so where did you study, man? I said, hey, man, I didn't study nowhere. I said I studied in my hotel room, and you know, and at night, you know, I played at Mitchell's Hotel, and I was surrounded by great musicians like Robert Talley. Did you know Robert Talley? Did you hear of him?
No, sir.
You're too young for that, man. How old are you, Ron?
I'm 36.
Oh shit, no, you wouldn't know about these guys.
I don't know.
But ask about Robert Talley, Ozzy Horn. Did you ever hear of Ozzy
They
Horn?
told they said Ozzy Horn actually trained Quincy Jones at Berkeley.
He probably did because Ozzy Horn was a great arranger, and he played vibes and piano. He was
Yeah.
great.
I know Lionel Hampton allegedly told his son that he was the greatest vibraphonist he ever heard.
Well, I tell you, Ozzy could play, man.
Mm.
But you know, another guy that could play some fast was Lionel Hampton, man. Lionel Hampton was tough on the boy. I listened to some of the Hampton stuff because I was in the band, you know.
Uh-huh.
I was in the band from 1965, a whole year, basically of 1965. I was in his big band.
Wow.
And so I moved around, man. And this was after Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Miles was 63, 64. So after I left Miles, I went with Lionel Hampton in 1965. Traveled with him domestically. I didn't go to Europe with him.
Okay.
And I didn't stay with him long either because I know some guys. They said, yeah, I was with him, man. I was with him for 3 or 4 years. I think Mayburn worked with him too.
Okay.
He was there. You know, everybody that you can think of has probably worked with him. Clifford Brown,
Yeah.
maybe even let me see who
I know
else.
Quincy Jones did too, right? Was he in
Oh,
there?
Quincy, yeah, Quincy was
Mm-hmm.
there. Man, it was a lot of guys in Hamp's band.
But he was a
You
pretty
know,
good drummer too, right? He started out as a drummer, right?
he played a little bit of drums. He was a
Mm-hmm.
showman. And the story about him is he was on TV and he
Mm-hmm.
had a habit of on the last part of flying home, he jump up on a tom tom. He said he did that one night, and the tom tom gave out, and his butt hit the floor. Oh man, there was all kinds of stories about him, and
Uh-huh.
all those encores we used to have to take, and they used to kill the trumpet players, because they
Mm.
playing lead, and they got to. He said, oh, "One more time, Casey, we gonna play this," and we'd have to play the encore.
Wow.
He'd kick it off, we start over again.
Mm.
And it was a great era, though, Ron. I mean, I enjoyed all of that stuff back in that time. It was enlightening and educational for me.
Oh,
So
what?
every little thing that I absorbed during that time, it was good for me.
Yeah, I want to ask
So
you about Manassas. I just think it's real interest. 'Cause, I mean, Memphis is so fascinating to me. It's like a vortex of history, and I call it cultural commerce because Memphis really. You can't have America without Memphis, like with the story and the history and the culture that we
that's right.
provided.
But you see, a lot of people do not know about the the people who were there back then.
Mm-hmm.
They know about Isaac Hayes because Isaac Hayes was not a jazz musician,
Right.
great R&B guy, but my brother taught Isaac Hayes some music. He taught him music. My brother was an alto saxophone player here in the city.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he played a little bit, and then later on when I had because we did a documentary, and I went down to Florida where he was living, and interviewed. There was an interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
Where I interviewed him, and my son was the guy that put the documentary together,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me some stuff I didn't know. I know he worked with Little Richard.
Mm.
He was in Little Richard's band, but I didn't know he was in Hamp's in Ray Charles' band.
Oh really? Yeah. Was he an older brother or he was a younger
Yeah, he
brother?
was a little bit older than me. He died when he was about 84, maybe.
Oh
He
okay.
wasn't that much older than me, but he was a few years older than me. And he told me one incident when he was in Ray Charles' band.
Mm-hmm.
He said they were out on the road, and this girl liked him a lot, and Ray liked the girl. So he said that Ray got mad with him one night and swung on him.
Oh really?
Ray was there swinging in air and trying to hit him.
Uh-huh.
And so I got all of this stuff I didn't know about when I interviewed him. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't even know he had ever worked with Ray. When
Wow.
he was there, because he was good too. He could read, and he write, and he taught Isaac stuff about chords and stuff. So he was great. He just died maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
But I did have a chance because we were somewhat estranged from him. He
Mm-hmm.
and I, we were estranged. He was in California for a while, and then he moved down to Florida, and then he's got a big family down there, and I went and met his family. He got 5 boys down there.
Wow.
He had about 3 or 4 girls up here in Memphis.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, it was one that was always keeping in touch with me, and I was supposed to get back to her to let her know I was here, but I didn't have time. I didn't have time to do none of that.
Right.
Just like now, I don't have time to too much. I'm here and I'm gone. Tomorrow we leave tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'll
But
try
it's
to.
been
Yeah.
enlightening and it's been good. Because you're another guy that I met, that
Yes,
I
sir.
didn't know about. So it's just rewarding. Every time I come down here, I get. And then there were some ladies there last night that were from the class of '48.
Right.
See,
Manassas.
I was
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
I was 52. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't go to Manassas, did you?
No, sir. I went to Overton.
You went to Overton.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
But yeah, I didn't. Oh boy, it was quite a history here in this city, man. Quite a history.
Yeah, I want to ask you about your Manassas days because was Matt Garrett, was he the teacher there, the music teacher there?
He was the musical director there.
And how was he like being? I mean, because y'all had so many of y'all came out in that era though. It was
Well,
so
you
many
know,
of
he
y'all.
Dee Bridgewater's father.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but he was cool. Matt was good, and I used to write out stuff for Matt, man. I used to sit at the piano, play these chords, and the figures that I would write for him. You know, I remember one explicitly I wrote for him on East of the Sun, West of the Moon. It was a solo, a full solo for him. And then one time, Charles Lloyd called me when he was in school well, I think it was Southern California when he place where he graduated from. He was in a contest, and he said, "Man, I need a solo on I Remember April. Would you send me a solo on I Remember April?" So I wrote out the whole 32-bar solo of I Remember April, sent it to him. He performed it, he practiced it and performed it, and won the award at the school.
He give you a percentage of the award, or he give you some money for it, or?
No. I'm sure he remembers, though. If you asked him today, he would remember it. Now, I don't know whether he still has the music, but see, with me, at one time I had music that dated way back when, stuff that I had written, let's say, when I was maybe just started playing, you know, or songs that I had composed and stuff. So he might have that in his archive somewhere, Charles. He might, but that was something that I wrote for him, and because of it, he said, "Man, I won the competition because of that rendition of I Remember April." Wow. And I said, "Okay, well, that's great." You know.
I mean, like,
you know,
all y'all talented. Y'all got so much talent at that school. I mean, was it Matt? How did Matt Garrett really teach y'all? Was he really teaching y'all anything?
Well, you know, Matt was a good teacher. He was a good teacher. And he knew all about stuff. I remember one time when he was the director there, Frank Foster sent an arrangement of I Remember April. It had a tempo change in it. I mean, it started out in 4/4, and then it went into 3. And this is early stuff, man. But see, Frank Foster's been doing that stuff for many years. As a matter of fact, Frank Foster, I put him in a category of all those guys, Quincy and all them guys, man. Frank Foster was a hell of a arranger. He wrote all this stuff for Basie, a lot of stuff for Basie. He wrote stuff, you know, for his own bands, his own big bands. And we were in the band together with Elvin Jones.
Wow, Elvin Jones.
Yeah, 2 tenors, bass, and drums, and Elvin. The 4 of us was a quartet. We didn't have no piano.
Yeah, I like your son. He reminds me a little bit of Elvin Jones, a little bit in his playing. I like it.
Yeah, he's good, man. You know, right now he's doing something that he's good at too. You know, he's good with computers and sales and all of that stuff. So he's got a job because, you know, he likes money.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
He likes music. He likes music and money. The 2 M's he's crazy about. But, you know, with all this, he as a matter of fact, he just between me and you, he touched up my account a little bit.
I heard that.
So, you know, that's what sons and daughters and whoever, they're gonna hit on you for money.
Right.
If you got children, you know that.
Yes, sir. Well, I look forward to it then. I got to make a lot of money.
Well, it's going to happen, Ron. But anyway, man, listen, it's wonderful talking to you.
Yes, sir.
And I think we achieved what we needed to do, you know.
Yes, sir, I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
And you can always call me when I get home, you know, if it's a question that you want to have. If I have any information that I can impart to you or help you in your writings or whatever, I'll be happy to do it.
I appreciate that. And also, I mean, did B.B. King, was he able to sing and play his guitar at the same time?
Who?
B.B. King, was he able to sing and play his guitar at the same time?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I never seen no footage of him singing and playing at the same time.
Oh yeah, he could do that. Well, that thrill is gone and stuff like that. I mean, he played the solo, but he could play the guitar while he was singing,
Okay.
and he always did. When he would come up, he'd have his guitar in his hand, and he'd be playing and singing, man. You know, it was great, man. BB was something else. I like BB.
All right, brother Coleman. I like you. We love you madly. Actually, I look forward to hearing you
Well, thank
tonight.
you, Ron.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure, man,
Yes,
talking
sir.
to you, and I hope I'll see you again.
You will see me
Hopefully.
tonight. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, good. Looking forward to seeing you. Take
Yes,
care,
sir.
buddy.
You
All
too.
right. Bye.
Bye bye.